channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. It's a pleasure to be back on this beautiful Monday morning, 25 minutes past the top of the hour of 9 a.m. Here in Kampala, Uganda, where I do come to you live on this beautiful, sunny, bright and sunny Monday morning. Hope you guys are doing well. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. So we are back to discuss some, some football, some sports, and things like that, So please bear with me as we get into today's conversation, because I think there's plenty for us to discuss this beautiful Monday morning. We'll be discussing on whether Liverpool need another forward player. And the reason as to why it comes to the forefront of our morning debate this morning or topic is because there's a lot of talk going on in regards to what Liverpool need going into the new season. If they are to defend their Premier League title, if they are to defend that, that big prize and honor. Anyways, but before we get into that conversation, I wish to send my special shout outs to every single one of you that managed to catch last night's broadcast. Thank you so much, Mochi Richards. Thank you so much, Testers of Life. Thank you so much, Riyadh. Thank you so much, Felix. Thank you so much, LFC. Thank you so much, 8 Gamer. Thank you so much, Pedri, and every single one of you that was part of last night's podcast. It was a pleasure having you around, and I hope we get to do this more often than not. Anyways, allow me to have our audios tested, make sure everything does check out. Today's morning episode won't be too long. It won't be too long, if I'm being honest, as I do have some other errands to run to tend to. So we'll keep it as short as possible. We'll keep it to the basics, but while covering all bases in regards to the events that we need to discuss as of this beautiful morning. Of course, there's yesterday we did witness the Community Shield in which Liverpool lost 3-2 on penalties. That proceeded a 2-2 draw in normal time. Nothing worrying for Liverpool. There's nothing alarming, nothing to really be overly excited about if you're, a Liverpool rival fan, because it's a one-off. It's a game where we first, competitively at perhaps one of the highest levels of football, where we got to see Liverpool's new incomings. That's the likes of Jeremy Frimpong, Florian Wirtz, Milos Kerkez, Hugo Ekitike, and things like that. So it was a good, beautiful game of football, one where Crystal Palace were robbed of a clear and obvious penalty. I understand. I saw, not so, but had commentators try to defend that decision, that there's no way you give a penalty for that. And I'm like, did you guys start doing commentary yesterday? Because we've seen penalties given away for much, much less than that. Because their argument was that McAllister was not in vision of the ball when it hit his arm, and things like that. Do you remember something to do with Presido Kimpembe, PSG versus Manchester United, last minute penalty? Do you remember something like that? So please quit telling me that he was not inside of the ball, because had that ball not hit his arm, it was going to be chested by Ismail Sarr, who possibly could have gone to score. So clearly, that was a goal opportunity denied, in my opinion. So it should have been a penalty that they should have awarded yesterday. But VAR thought otherwise, and as I watched that exact moment, I couldn't help but think to myself that perhaps that La Liga are right, and maybe the Premier League may need one day, actually as soon as today, they need to borrow that principle from the Spanish La Liga, where they are granting coaches or head coaches or managers permission to question certain referee decisions, to summon referees to the monitor to check certain decisions. And in that principle, managers will be allowed to say, for example, like in that incident where McAllister handles the ball in the forbidden area, Oliver Glasner would have the leeway, because he was clearly on the touchline protesting, trying to signal as the fourth official, as much as the match officials, that there has been a clear and obvious handball in there. Now, under the new rules of the Spanish La Liga, Oliver Glasner would have the opportunity to summon the referee in the form of an appeal to come to the VAR and check out that decision. Now, if the referee does stick with his on-field decision earlier on, now Oliver Glasner would lose his second opportunity to make another call or summoning the referee to, the video to the monitor to assess another decision. Now, in this particular case, they two managers are using the video assistant referee. In other words, they will have a chance to, look at the clip, see the replay before calling the referee to review a decision. Something like that. They've always had their simple iPads or laptops or phones, whatever they use, to look at certain incidents and alert themselves to what has actually happened. Was that a red card? Was that an actual foul? Should the referee have done more? Was our player at fault? And things like that. They've always had that access. But in this case, the Spanish La Liga is giving the managers that bit of wiggle room to go ahead and, have a review of those decisions. Now, if a manager summons the referee to the monitor for review of a particular decision and it goes the manager's way, then they do not lose their second opportunity to summon the referee again, because that means they would have called the referee the right decision. And if the referee changes their own field decision, and for example, in that particular incident, if Oliver Glasner summoned the referee, who was the referee by the way? Was it Chris Kavanagh? I stand to be corrected, on who was actually the match official yesterday, and he would have summoned him and said, look at this, you need perhaps to review this, and in the event that he reviews it and it does agree with him, then he would have done what? He would have gone ahead to award the penalty, he would have gone to award the penalty. So, I mean, yes, I think it was Chris Kavanagh who took charge of that game. Yes, Chris Kavanagh was in charge. So Oliver Glasner would have summoned Chris Kavanagh to say, please come to the monitor, look at this decision again. We think it's a penalty. We think you've not had a good view of this, and perhaps the video assistant referees have not summoned you to the monitor to take another look at this decision, and we feel you're being misguided on this one. So I think they're going to miss that, but it's something that would really, really help them if it was a rule in the Premier League. If among the changes that La Liga are having as far as the new campaign is concerned, that's the one thing I would borrow to bring to the Premier League. But anyways, it wasn't that penalty wasn't given. Of course, Hugo and Ekitike getting off the mark quite brilliantly, scoring his first goal in the Liverpool jersey, official goal. Florian Wirtz providing the assist, and then Joan Philippe Mateta scoring the penalty on the other end, following the foul on Ismail Sarr by Virgil van Dijk to make it 1-1. And then in the 20th minute, thereabout, Jeremy Frimpong scoring a spectacular goal to make it 2-1. Again, another debutant making a mark on his name by scoring that beautiful, beautiful goal on the evening. So it was really, really brilliant to watch for Jeremy Frimpong, for Hugo and Ekitike. But then in the second half, where we did have the penalty incident goal, again, Crystal Palace dug in and defended well. They also tried to attack Liverpool spaces, and then subsequently got themselves that goal through Ismail Sarr that restored parity. And then we went into penalties. Henderson saved 2 penalties. One was placed over the bar, that was by Mo Salah. Then Alisson saved 1 penalty. One hit the crossbar. But Crystal Palace winning that one 3-2. Like I said in the preview of the game, I think winning that game meant much more to Crystal Palace than it would mean to Liverpool, because if you're a Premier League champion, winning the Community Shield is not always as good as it is. It doesn't earn you any bragging rights or whatsoever. So in that case, but for Crystal Palace, it means really, really a lot. So that's 2 trophies, if you would love to add it to the accolade. for Oliver Glasner. Remember, he did join Crystal Palace in February 2024. February 2024. I think he was replacing Roy Hodgson, who himself had helped Crystal Palace when they sacked Patrick Vieira. So very, very beautiful for him to add those two trophies. Of course, he did win the UEFA Europa League in 2022 with Eintracht Frankfurt. Now, last season winning the FA Cup, another Community Shield is something that gets added on his particular CV as a manager. So it is really, really impressive. And I saw Steve Parish overjoyed that the Crystal Palace CEO, of course, did have a little chat about his players. Eberechi is being one of those being inquired about him. And he said players come and go. That's the nature. That's the cycle. He hopes that all their good players stay, but looks like they could lose McKay, they could lose Eberechi Eze in the transfer window where they've hardly had much business to do really. So when you look at the kind of business that Crystal Palace have done so far in this transfer window, it's not promising. If you're Oliver Glasner, you're most definitely disappointed that you've not done enough because they've only had two players come in. That's Bona Sosa for £3 million from Ajax, as well as Walter Benitez from PSV Eindhoven as a free agent. They had so many outgoings, although majority of them have been loans for youngsters, but they did lose Rob Holding to Colorado Rapids in the MSL. They lost Joel Watt. That one was released. In fact, was somewhere as part of the media. I don't remember. Was it Sky Sport? Jeffrey Sharp has joined Norwich City. Lowy Morden released. Owen Goodman did join Huddersfield Town. Joel Whitworth joined Exeter. Danny Emery did join Blackpool. David Ozzy joined Derby County, on loan, as well as Malcolm did also join Blackpool for an undisclosed fee. So those are when you look that they've only had two incomings, it's not really, really looking pretty for Oliver Glasner, especially in a season where they're going to be partaking in Europe. So it's not good. It's not good. But we will see. We will see. Anyways, congratulations, Team Crystal Palace. Yes, he did replace Roy Hodgson. February 19th, that's when he took on the mantle. And 1 year and a half in, and he has two trophies, which is quite impressive, especially bearing in mind that Crystal Palace had never won a trophy. I remember last season, after the FA Cup final, when they beat Manchester City by a goal to nil to win it, I saw lifetime Crystal Palace fans, some 70 years of age and plus, saying they didn't think they would ever get to see it in a lifetime. And yet it did happen. Bearing in mind that I think they lost the 2021 FA Cup final to was it 2021? No, not 2021. 2016 FA Cup final. They lost to Manchester United by 2-1. Louis van Gaal, under the charges of Manchester United, they beat Crystal Palace by 2-1. Crystal Palace at the time were under the charges of Alan Pardew, that team that had Dwight Gale, it had Jason Banchon, I think Yannick Bolasie. That's the kind of team that we're talking about. But yeah, so congratulations, Team Crystal Palace, upon that run. Now, let's shift the focus to Liverpool. Now, this particularly has a little to do with the loss that Liverpool sustained for us to be raising these questions, but it has to do with the overall health of their squad and where we think they do stand and whether we think they do need more. Particularly, personally, I feel they need a forward player. Is it priority? I would say a defender should be priority, and perhaps a defensive midfielder would be priority, given what they have currently. They still have Federico Chiesa, they have Hugo Ekitike, they have Cody Gakpo, they have Mohamed Salah, they have Florian Wirtz. These are players I'm all considering as forwards. Of course, then you have the youngsters that are coming through the ranks. But bearing in mind that they've lost Diego Jota, unfortunately, to his demise, they've lost Luis Diaz and Darwin Nunez. When you lose three players who are very, very important to your triumph last season, then clearly you'd argue, it's safe to argue that Liverpool do need an extra forward to add to their ranks. And while Alexander Isak is primarily who they are looking at, I'm not convinced he is the solution. And I do not think it should be a do or die for Liverpool to get Alexander Isak. In any case, I feel in terms of numbers, to have a bit of competition and a healthy squad, they should be looking to add a forward, whether it's Alexander Isak or somebody else. But while they look to do that, then they should be looking to bolster their defense with a centre back at least. There've been reports linking them to McKay. They had interest in Joel Hatter, who moved to Chelsea, and things like that. But they are yet to solidify their interest in McKay with an official bid. It's only been speculation, fearing with Liverpool suggesting that his valuation is above what they feel and needs to be paid for a player like him. So I don't know. I don't know if they're waiting for the tail end of the window to make their move, because we are left with less than a month until the closure of this current transfer window, which closes on the end of this month. That is August the 31st. It will be a Sunday, slash 1st September, depending on your respective time zones. So we'll wait to see. We'll wait to see. But personally, I do feel that even when you have the kinds of players that Liverpool do have, I know they've already made significant additions. Milos Kakes, Jeremy Frimpong, Mama Dashfield, then Florian Wirtz, Hugo Ekitike. That's the goalkeeper that was ready. He's called Wood something. Wood, the third choice goalkeeper who had been released from Preston North End. That's as many as 6 players, youngsters notwithstanding. So you look around and you look at, especially their backline. You have Ibrahim Konate, Virgil van Dijk. You've lost Joel Konsa to Bayer Leverkusen, excuse me, and you need a body to replace in there. Joe Gomez, very injury prone, very unreliable as a backup. Sometimes when he's fully fit, he's a player that you can really rely on. He can be a reliable figure within the squad, but he's so injury prone that you never know when he's going to be available. Wataru Endo has turned into the de facto makeshift centre back to test him out. While he's looked like he can play that position really well, I think there's a lot when it comes to the demands of a full-blown season. Then you can't help but question whether he can cope with that kind of pressure, game in, game out. If there is any unfortunate injury to any of Liverpool's mainstays within the backline, I think we do not. If we keep Chiesa and Doc, I'll give Ekitike a chance to start. I would sign Giovanni Leone and McKay. Okay, that's Leo Curtis Jones. Hi, Leo Curtis Jones. Why are you joining us from this beautiful Monday morning? By going by your name, Curtis Jones, who by the way started in that Liverpool midfield ahead of the Gravenberch McAllister. He did start alongside Dominic Soboslai. Informs me that you are a Liverpool fan. Yes, again, I'm not opposed to the idea that Hugo Ekitike be given the chance to lead the Liverpool line. I'm really not against that, because I've always been of the argument that signing Alexander Isak, while it could be a chance, an opportunity that Liverpool would have to exploit or to take advantage of in the market, because such good players do not become available very often. I've also wondered to myself, and in form of opinion, whether it won't be too many cooks that could eventually spoil the soup. And by that, I mean too many stars. Because when you bring a player like Alexander Isak, he does not view him any less of a star than Mohamed Salah, who is perhaps on whom every eyeball in regards to Liverpool does center around. He is the star of the team. He's the one with whom that Liverpool have leveraged on to create most of their chances, but also to score most of their goals. Last season, he scored 28 goals and provided as many as I think 18 assists. So when you look at that, when you bring in a player like Alexander Isak, I feel that you're going to have a shift in regards to whom the eyes are focused too, because Alexander Isak is equally that big a star. So, and then you also have a player on the other side, the Hugo Ekitike. They want to add to their numbers. You have Cody Gakpo, and then where does Hugo Ekitike fit in? I know he can play off the left wing. That's all okay, but do Liverpool need that forward congestion with stars? Now, the other school of argument could be that this is only temporary because Mohamed Salah, 2 years on his contract, and also is not growing any younger. You're perhaps looking at the bigger picture, the much longer term. But in the interim, I get the feeling that there could be, a bit of a player struggle or egoism. Hello, deeply sorry I missed 2 of your last streams. It's all right, Jeff. FT Bell, it's all good, but as it's good to have you back. Good morning to you. How are you doing? How was your weekend? Did you enjoy it? Nice haircut. Thank you so much. So some people have oftentimes disagreed that I do not need a haircut. I need to grow my hair, but the justification for me is simple. When I go to take my bath, I need to feel the water hit my scalp to feel that coolness on it. Anyways, away from that, Super Pablo says hello. Why are you joining us, Super Pablo, from this beautiful morning? But good morning to you too, Super Pablo. It's a pleasure to have you on the broadcast. Anyways, so in the context of Liverpool, again, we were having this discussion last night with another Liverpool fan called Wirtz. I forget the other name and where he was joining us from really. I do forget that. And we're making, again, more or less the same arguments that Liverpool need a backup defender, although personally I believe for the health of the squad, they could use as many as 2 centre backs. Then they need that holding midfielder or defensive midfielder. My suggestion was a Carlos Baleba. It could be an Adam Wharton from Crystal Palace, who did really look impressive yesterday, by the way, and things like that. Shumail, good morning to you too. How are you? How is everything? I need to go now. Sorry. It's all right, Jeff. At least now you know what timelines within which we do our broadcasts. The other does come on at night at 11 p.m. East African time. Crystal Palace for life, guys. Shumail is an Arsenal fan, and that comment that Crystal Palace for life, please take it with the banter that it comes with in regards to Liverpool's loss. So that's what he means. West Indies won against Pakistan. I mean, sorry for your loss in those series, but what tournament is it, by the way? Kindly indulge me on that. I want Shumari to be our point person when it comes to cricket, especially from the Asian part of the continent. He's from Pakistan, so I want him to be our point person when it comes to that. The way Pedri is our point person when it comes to all things Barcelona. So like that, I want us to grow this community into focal point persons when it comes to major news and reports and everything to do with particular sports or particular clubs like that. So that will further improve our debate when it comes to these streams. It's just a series of 3 matches for which Pakistan has now won 2 and lost 1, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean that would be good. Liverpool W Crystal Palace, thinking in lose Liverpool with Crystal Palace. We should sign Eze because he has the experience of beating Liverpool in the final. I do not think you sign Ebeleche Eze because of his experience in beating Liverpool in the final, but you sign Ebeleche Eze because of his overall experience at the age of 27, a very reliable player, can take on opponents, can play off the left wing, can play as the number 10 to give Martin Odegaard competition, but also sufficient backup, in terms of player power and things like that. So those are some of the reasons as to why you would be looking to sign Ebeleche Eze. But for as far as Liverpool are concerned, I'm not saying yesterday's game should raise any alarms for them, but when you assess their overall squad, you can't help but feel that they could need an extra body here and there in terms of their overall squad, especially in defense, the midfield, as well as the forward lines. But according to Curtis Jones, it does say that because they do have Ekitike, and they could give a chance to Chiesa and Dog. Now, again, part of this argument is premised upon the fact that all reports all throughout this summer have been indicating that Federico Chiesa could leave Liverpool in this transfer window. Excuse me. And the reason for that has been simple, because it's a World Cup year, and because it's a World Cup year, he wants to get more regular football. Although his injuries do not oftentimes help, he wants to get more regular football because the new Italian national team manager, that's Gennaro Gattuso, was speaking about the matter and said he needs to find sufficient playing time. And yes, Chiesa in 2021 was on fire, without a doubt. I thought he was arguably the best player that there was in the Italian Serie at the time, And for those of you that chance yourself upon watching him during the Euro 2020 that was played in 2021, for which they went up to the final and beat England on penalties to win that accolade, he was just sensational. As well as Locatelli, very, very beautiful bowlers, really, there. So because of that background, when it comes to Federico Chiesa, that's what leads me to believe that Liverpool needs another forward player. So there's an expectation that Federico Chiesa could leave. Now, while the likes of Doc are very good, players within the Liverpool ranks, the likes of Rio Ngomoha, and players like that. Again, I keep saying this, unless the Ngomohas and Doc are going to burst onto the scene and be the next Raheem Sterling for Liverpool, then they could use another figure. But if they do believe with absolute certainty that they do have a reincarnation of a Raheem Sterling, that in Ngomoha they do have a reincarnation of a Robbie Fowler in some form or shape, then it's all good. Then they can look to first of all strengthen other positions, for which for me I believe that defense is should be really key. You say maybe a move to Florentino Perez. Sorry, maybe a move to Fiorentino might work for him. Again, all reports throughout the course of the summer in regards linking him with a potential move away from Anfield have suggested that the most plausible destination would be the Italian Serie A, with clubs like Napoli, Fiorentina, Inter Milan were at one point mentioned. I do not know. Atlanta was one of those teams mentioned, but it's yet to happen. It's yet to happen. Then you say rumors of Rodrigo on loan to Arsenal. Yes, we did start hearing those rumors at the tail end of last week. Although again, they've not garnered much pace in the last couple of days. But those rumors have been there that Arsenal would consider making a loan offer for Real Madrid's Rodrigo Goes, perhaps with an option to buy and things like that. But let's wait and see. I think now Arsenal are in a very, very crucial part of the transfer window, where as much as they need more incomings, they also need to make some player sales. Not particularly because they feel they need the money, but because at the end of the day, they'll have some books to balance, but also if it's to give them more leverage in terms of their spending power. Because if, let's say, you are able to move on Fabio Vieira, move on Rhys Nelson, move on Albert Sambilokonga, and maybe an Alexander Zinchenko, those are 4 players, and let's say you are able to raise, let's say, north of 70 million pounds out of those, and I'm saying that as the bare minimum, because I'm assuming you get, let's say, 15 to 18 million pounds for Alexander Zinchenko, you get at least 25 million pounds for Rhys Nelson, English player, so there's a bit of an English tax, so that's already 15 plus 25 is what? 40. Then you get maybe 25 from Fabio Vieira, that's 65, and then let's say you get yourself 8 to 10 million pounds for Albert Sambilokonga, then suddenly you have 70 million pounds that you can look to reinvest within your squad. So that's what is happening at Arsenal. You say Saudi League is cooking. They also want Kingsley Coman. Yes, Al Nassr want to sign Kingsley Coman from Bayern Munich. The player is open to joining the Saudi Pro League side. 29 years of age. Again, he's approaching the evenings of his career. Sometimes he can be oftentimes injured, but Bayern Munich are open to letting him go. So that deal is also on track. Could happen through the course of this summer. And it's one of those things that you look at and say, while it's a World Cup year, it's not really a bad move for him. If you can guarantee more playing time there. Selling Luis Diaz for 81 mil is crazy, unless you mean that in dollars, but he did go for 70 million euros, plus expected add-ons amounting to about 5 million euros there. Okay, when you look at the overall context of the market, it's not too odd a fee. While I think that Bayern Munich may have slightly overpaid for him, given that when you look around, it came at a point when they failed to get their most preferred options. You remember the initial pursuit was with Nico Williams. You know, they had Bradley Barcola on that shortlist. So when you look at the comparisons there in between, then you get to think to yourself, maybe it's not too far off the mark. But yeah, Liverpool got the better end of the deal for that one. Noni Madueke might play as a left winger. Yeah, that could happen. We saw him for 45 minutes against Athletic Bilbao, and he looked okay. The reason as why I say he looked okay is because he didn't do anything special. What he did was almost the basics of a traditional winger. You know, get to the byline, try and push defenders, and then get that cross in. He got in about 4 to 5 crosses, which were really good, including one that Victor Gyökeres headed and forced Unai Simon into a save before that ball hit the upright. So it looked good. So I wouldn't be surprised if indeed they do get him playing on the right flank, on the left flank of the pitch. Bye, bro. I have to go. I might come back. Hopefully, we'll be still here. But like I said, today we'll try not to keep this one too long because I also need to run and do some other work after today's broadcast. But it's been a pleasure. It's always a pleasure having you around, Ashmael. Thank you so much for your engagement. Nayab says, I think Liverpool just need a backup. ST. I don't know what ST stands for, but yeah, again, guys, just to reemphasize, while I think Liverpool need another forward because of the players they've lost, I do not think it should be their top priority. It's not their most urgent need. For example, if they are trying to address the depth of their squad, ST means striker. Okay. Thank you so much for the clarification. Like I said, while I think they need another forward because they've lost Luis Diaz, they've lost Darwin Nunez, and they lost unfortunately Diego Jota. When you look at the priorities within the squad when it comes to squad building and strengthening, of course it shouldn't be the priority. That centre back role where they lost Joel Quensha, bearing in mind that they're now relying on Wataru Endo to see if he can really hack it there. And so far, every time he's been played there, he has looked pretty decent. And then they have Joe Gomez within the same composition. Every time I look at that, I get the feeling I'm like, they need an extra man in there. They need, and not just an extra body. It has to be a reliable figure, because envision yourself in a situation where suddenly the transfer window has closed and one of your key defenders suffers, a long-term injury, or actually two. So when you look at right back, they have a good backup in Conor Bradley for Jeremy Frimpong. When you go to left back, Andy Robertson is there, as well as Milos Kakes, whoever Arne Slot chooses to start ahead is whoever will play. But at least you can see their potent backups. But when you look at the centre back, Joe Gomez is what is available. And like I said, Joe Gomez is injury prone. He's so injury prone. And while he can be very good when he's fit, can be a reliable figure, he's oftentimes injured. So if you do lose Ibrahim Konate or Virgil van Dijk to a long-term injury, then you could look to suffer. Then, so that's why I've always felt that maybe Liverpool needed to move fast and try to sign McKay before Newcastle completed the deal for Malik Theo from AC Milan. There were reports suggesting that they could move back in for McKay. We know Tottenham Hotspurs do have long-term interest in signing the 24-year-old England centre-back. They've not come back for him this summer. And Tottenham is another team that is already dealing a whole host of injuries. Dejan Kulusevski, James Maddison out for 6 to 7 months for that anterior cruciate ligament injury. Radu Dragison already out injured, and things like that among a whole host of players. So Liverpool, if Liverpool were to find themselves in unfortunate circumstances, as perhaps Arsenal or Tottenham Hotspurs did find themselves in last season when it comes to injuries, then it's going to be really, really difficult for them to sustain, especially when it comes to their thin backline. And then also in midfield, I'm of a view that they need a central midfielder. They need another body in there, you know. So, anyways, you say, okay, their priority is to sign Isak, as they made suffer in centre back. Yeah, unless what they're telling us is that they'll try to keep it average in their backline, or they will take the risk for as long as it means that they get to score as many goals as they can. On the other end, they could be looking to outscore teams. It could be their strategy, the way sort of Barcelona were going at it last season. You know, it could be that will be their strategy. Just look at Arsenal and Chelsea; they have much better squad depth than Liverpool. Still, they are shit. Now, again, yesterday I made that example and I said, if let's say, while Arsenal are yet to win anything, in comparison to Liverpool, I think if there's anything that Liverpool fans or Liverpool even in general would admire about Arsenal is their squad depth when it comes to the backline. Gabriel Magalhaes, William Saliba, Ricardo Carafiori, Jurriën Timber, Jakub Kiwior, Ben White, Christian Mosquera, Mazlou Skelly, who we know is naturally a midfielder but can play as a left back. So, and things like that. So, when you look at that, I think it's something to really, really admire. And by the way, guess what? Arsenal, at the right fee, are willing to let go of a player like Jakub Kiwior. And I do not know why. For some reason, Premier teams have not expressed any form of interest whatsoever. The only team that wanted to sign him was FC Porto. Of course, he's also been linked with a potential move to AC Milan, but that is yet to materialize. It's only speculation at the moment. FC Porto did approach Arsenal, however, they were unwilling to meet the club's valuation for the Polish defender, 25 years of age at the moment, you know, has really, really improved as a defender. So that is an option for any team that wants a defender. When you go to Chelsea do struggle, yes, with some injuries, and I know that Levi Colwill is currently injured. But you look at players, when you look at the entire backline squad, Trevor Chalobah, Tosin Aderabio, Levi Colwill, Wesley Fofana, you know, all those are centre backs. They've just added Joel Hatton to those ones, you know, all those are centre backs. So much so that they even signed Mamadou Sarr and sent him back on loan to Strasbourg, you know. So at the end of the day, they do have the numbers. When it comes to right back, Moises Caicedo, when it comes to right back, Richie James, Malo Gusto, but if push comes to shove, Moises Caicedo can be played at right back because, again, in midfield, they have the numbers. Dario Esugo, Romeo Ravia, as much as he's injury prone, you know, Enzo Fernandez, you can play him in that role, and things like that. So they have numbers, but they also have quality numbers and multi-purpose numbers when it comes to that. So, yeah. And in any case, Chelsea's success last season has been partly because of that strength in numbers, in the depth. They've been the ability to rotate players and rotate players of almost with little indifference in quality and things like that. So when you look at the way they've tinkered with their backline, today it's Levi Colwill and Wesley Fofana, tomorrow it's Levi Colwill and Chaloba, tomorrow it's Chaloba and Tosin Aderabio, things like that. You know, they do have an Axel Disasi in there who they want to move on. You know, he did go out and on with Aston Villa for the second part of last season. I know Villarreal is one of the teams interested, although possibly they are not yet ready or they do not have the financial resources to meet his asking price at the moment. So, Naib, you ask a question, what do you say about Manchester United this season? Again, Manchester United, very promising. I do not think they are going to be as bad this season as they were last season, particularly in the Premier League. What I've seen in pre-season, there's so many positives to look at Manchester United. Excuse me. Especially in the manner in which they played, I thought they've looked at least in full grasp of the way the manager wants them to play in terms of fitting that structure of the 3-4-2 kind of one system. That's how he wants to set up his team. He likes to play with 2 number 10s. In that game against Fiorentina, he did play with 3 number 10s. He did play with actually 4 in the team. You had Matthias Cunha, you had Mbani Mbomo, you had Mason Mount, I think, and then you had Bruno Fernandes. Now, Bruno Fernandes was played as an 8 alongside, I think, Manuel Ugarte. Yes. And then you had Amadou Diallo played as a wingback with Patrick Togu. Now, Patrick Togu, for me, has been the standout player in Manchester United this pre-season so far. But again, in that back 3, looks like the manager has yet to decide on who his main 3 characters are going to be. When you look at Nusa Mazorui, Lenio, Lisandro Martinez, Harry Maguire, Luke Shaw. Now, and when it comes to Luke Shaw, he's a player that they will be willing to move on. That's for sure. 2, I think Lenio is guaranteed of a place in there. Then all the others may depend on how they trade. Matthias De Ligt, Harry Maguire, Nusa Mazorui, those will have to depend. However, in my personal opinion, I think a fully fit Lisandro Martinez is their best as centre back on the left side of the back 3. And then Lenio would come in the center of that. And then Nusa Mazorui on the right side of the, let's say, at the back 3. Then if it's going to be Matthias De Ligt, then Lenio will have to come on the right-hand side. Then when it comes to that midfield, that's partly where I do have issues, where I feel that they need an extra figure. Yes, they have Manuel Ugarte, Casemiro, Kobe Maino. Yes, they have players in there, you know. They have players in there. But I certainly feel that, and that's why they are linked with the potential move for Carlos Baleba. Whether they will get him or not, that's a different whole story. Personally, I do believe, without an ounce of doubt, that Man United, the kind of midfielder that Manchester United need is a number 8, a traditional number 8 kind of player, because we know Bruno Fernandes is not that. You need a player like a Yuri Tillemans, a player that is able to help you defensively and offensively. That's the kind of player, especially if Man United want to be also dominant on the ball and dictate what is done with the ball, you know, and something like that. So when you look at their forward lines, they're really, really strong. They're really, really strong. They've added Benjamin Sesko. You have Rasmus Højlund, Joshua Zirkzee, Brian Mbeumo, Matthias Cunha. Those are all goals. Amadou Diallo is there. Mason Mount looks fit, and he looks more like a new signing for them. They have a number 8 in Kobe Mainu. Now, look at Kobe Mainu in his breakthrough season and look at him last season or this season. He's not been the same player. I feel like his progression or advancement has sort of stalled in a way, given the pace he had come on with. He can play that role. But because his growth has been derailed, he's made us believe that Man United need that kind of player. But even when they've had him, again, he's not the typical number 8. You know, he's more like a half 8, half 6 kind of player. You know, and he's not the typical 8. He's not your traditional Francesc Sola Fabregas. You know, he's not your Yuri Tillemans. He's not your Bernardo Silva of a sort. He's not your Xavi, you know. He's not your Xavi, you know. So I get the feeling that they need that kind of profile of player. They need that traditional Paul Scholes, you know, kind of. That's the kind of player that they need. And that's a player they've been trying to find for quite some time. And they so much to their fame. So, of course, within the forward lines, Benjamin Sesko is not the player that I really want to count on. I want to count on the 10s, Brian Mbeumo and Matthias Cunha. That's where my sort of sight is going to be, because Sesko is just another 22-year-old striker who is far from a finished product, very promising talent, pretty much the same way Rasmus Højlund was 2 years ago when they signed him. And perhaps not much indifferent from Joshua Zirkzee, although different kind of profile of player. Again, promising players that could be an instant hit, may not be an instant hit, could struggle to survive within the Manchester United environment, but I think he will be a success overall. You say, I think they are going to build a young prospect squad. Again, it's a mixture of both of experienced players and young players. Lenny Yoro is young, Harry Maguire is not, Nusa Mazaro is not, Matthias David is no longer a young player. So that's a mixture of, you know, both young talents as well as maturity and experience. Because Aiden Heaven, Patrick Dogu, those are young players. Diego Leon, those are young players. When it comes to their midfield, Kobe Mino is young, Manelo Ugarte and Casemiro, those are not young. Bruno Fernandes is not young. Matthias Cunha, 26, you're not young. 25, actually 26, Brian Mbeumo, you're not young. You believe to be experienced. You're hitting the prime of your career. Then Joshua Zirkzee, 24, Rasmus Højlund, 22, Benjamin Sesko, 22. That's young. Chido Martin Obi, even younger, 18. So it's a mixture of both. You say, I think, okay, we discussed the number 8 thing. They need a player like Baleba. I think that I certainly agree with you on that, because, again, while Baleba is predominantly a number 6, he can play for you as a number 8, the kind of box-to-box kind of role. He's not a Paul Pogba, but that kind of box-to-box role is really crucial. He's press resistant, can win the ball back quite easily, whether it's in the forward positions or back shielding. He could be, I think he would help them create what Arsenal are trying to create with Martin Zubimendi alongside Declan Rice. The way we saw them in that game against Athletic Bilbao, when they were switching, you know, between one going forward and another staying behind, because they can't all play that sort of defensive role. So he could offer them that much needed kind of thing. You say, and most importantly, a goalkeeper. Now, with what they have, again, the reason as to why, for me, a goalkeeper wouldn't be number 1 priority for Manchester United, even though they could use a much better goalkeeper, is because over the years, Manchester United's goalkeeping has not been the problem. In fact, how many times did we watch David De Gea be voted Manchester United player of the season? You know, for a good amount of time, until Bruno Fernandes came in and dethroned him of that, I think on 2 occasions, and then on another occasion he still won it. The reason as to why he was their best player is because they could easily reach on him. Opponents could easily reach the Manchester United defense, get shots on goal, and that's how we could see that David De Gea is that good, or he was always the same line. Now, while Andre Onana has things to correct, I've always been of the argument that you do not tell me that in 2023, Andre Onana was the best goalkeeper in Europe, and then certainly 2 years down the road, he's the worst goalkeeper that Manchester United have ever had. I do not want to believe that. It has had to do with how they play. If you have a midfield that is not good at protecting the back 4, it's your goalkeeper that ends up suffering, especially if your back 4 are not the prime defenders. Now, let me ask this question. Which Manchester United centre-back do you think would go to Manchester City and start right away, would come to Liverpool and start ahead of Ibrahim Konate and Virgil van Dijk, would walk into that Arsenal backline and earn themselves straight away a starting slot? What defender do you think that is? In my opinion, I do not think there's any. I do not think that they go in those 3 teams and suddenly earn themselves a straight out starting place. In fact, even when you go to Tottenham, a fully fit Christian Romero and Mick van de Ven could make a case for themselves that none of them goes in. Now, you're talking about Harry Maguire proved last season. Again, it was in the second part of the season that he looked a bit good, But overall, was he the best? Would you name him among the best centre backs in the Premier League last season? I wouldn't, because I would go to Nottingham Forest and tell you Murillo was a better defender. The Nikola Milenkovic was a better defender. I'll go to Crystal Palace and tell you McGinn was a better defender. I'll go to Newcastle and tell you that Fabian Schär was a better defender. So really, while he had a good season, on his own account, I do not see how he gets into the best backlines. So every time they have inefficiencies in midfield, they easily get back they easily penetrate through the backline, and then it's the goalkeeper that ends up suffering. We've had that. So yeah, while they could use because if let's say you're comparing Andre Onana with Gianluigi Donnarumma, who himself is not the most perfect of goalkeepers, I would say Donnarumma is a better goalkeeper. But at the end of the day, I do not think it should be what Man United prioritizes in this transfer window. However, if they are able to get a defensive midfielder and the goalkeeper, it would be really, really good for their season. Then you also say, okay, right now there is no defense in United that plays at top level. Exactly. Backline has to be strong. What you said is right. Thank you so much for that. We are seeing eye to eye on that. If the backline is not strong, any goalkeeper would suffer. Exactly. And by the way, while David De Gea was, being the best goalkeeper in those ones, there are times Man United fans were angry with him because he conceded some, what could pass for stupid goals. That also did happen. So overall, I believe that they need to fix their backline. And again, this is going to depend on the effectiveness of the 3-4-2-1 kind of system that Ruben Amorim is going to deploy. How that system clicks is going to be crucial in making their defenders look better. In making their defenders look better. Because, for example, particularly the game against West Ham and I think Bournemouth, when they won 2-1 and 4-1 respectively, you could see that they're trying to use the forwards to lead the press. In that case, it was Rasmus Hojlund who was the leading striker. He would form the three in addition to Matheus Cunha and I think it was Bruno Fernandes to lead the press. That counter press, in a particularly against West Ham. So because West Ham were looking to build from the back, they would lead the press, and that press was a bit narrow within the center. So then what they did, they were forcing West Ham to go sideways, to go to the wings. Now, as soon as they went to the wings, you had their wing backs and the two midfielders, in that case, come and close down that space, which then eventually has the winger or the right back or left back for West Ham turn their attention backwards to see if there's an option or force them to go long. And they won the ball easily back. But also, if you can't play through that resistance, it showed there were gaps. Because if you do remember, one of the goals that, for example, the reason as to why that was effective, one of the goals that they did score was a result of that counter press, forcing them into an error, and then the ball was intercepted by Kobe Mainoo before it was played into Bruno Fernandes, who then scored. But also in the reverse, the goal that Manchester United conceded, I think it was scored by Gerard Bowen. Again, you had that counter press being beaten. Ball, I think, was played through Thomas Tuchel, that line breaking pass, and things like that. So while it's a good system, it also has its inefficiencies. Players need to be really, really spot on if they're going to, they tried playing from the back. Yeah, that they do. It's solely why they signed Andre Onana and Eric Turner. He wanted that ball playing goalkeeper because ball playing was not a strength of David De Gea. He never had that kind of strength. It was never his forte. After they lose possession, they do not know how to cover. Yes, that last season, that was part of their inefficiencies, but it's something that I've seen them really, really improve, especially in the games that I've had the chance to watch them during the course of the summer. So, and again, I do not. While the game against Arsenal is a good test for them, as well as much as it is for Arsenal, I do not think it's going to be a good measure for Man United in regards to how they play. Reason being is Manchester United have not had trouble playing against big teams, even at their worst. Against big teams, they'll put in the shift. It's usually against smaller teams or mid-table teams that then you get to see them exposed, that you get to see a Tottenham coming to Old Trafford and win there by 3-0, that you get to see Bournemouth come and whip them at Old Trafford, and things like that, So we'll see. What say about Man City after signing quality players? One, I feel Manchester City is going to be a bit of an unknown quantity in terms of player profile, but in terms of the manager, we know what he's very capable of. I think they could pass for an unrecognized figure, because I do not think the media is going to over scrutinize them or is going to have their overarching eye on them, because they've not signed marquee signings. They've not had those marquee signings. They've not signed very expensive players. They've added quality, but at relative prices. When you look at the January Enders from AC Milan, Ryan Cheki, when you look at Ryan Ashnory, when you look at all those players, they've come at reasonable fees. And even when you go back to January, even though their overall spend looks big, but they've been signing multiple players. I think the most expensive buy in January was Omar Mamouche for about £59 million from Frankfurt. So remember last season, but one, that was 2023-2024, when Liverpool finished third, I think with a tally of about 82 points. And because at one point they were pushing for 4 titles and they almost lost it all, but the Carabao Cup, which they won by beating Chelsea 1-0 in the final. We went into last season, 2024-2025, when majority of us, our eyes were on Arsenal and Man City because they were the teams to beat. And then suddenly, Liverpool almost went under the radar, and before we knew it, they were winning the Premier League title. So I feel Manchester City are going to be that kind of team, because again, for all the players they've signed, none is going to scream that, oh, that's the way they signed Braut Haaland. None of the players they've signed is within that realm of profile. So much of the eyes are on Liverpool and Arsenal. Why? Because Liverpool are the defending champions. Arsenal finished second for the third consecutive time. And they've added Victor Gyökeres, which is, although not very expensive, but a big profile player. You've added Martin Zubimendi. These are, players that have put Arsenal under a bigger spotlight, but also Arsenal's project and growth and length is what puts them under the biggest spotlight. When it goes to Liverpool, you brought in Ekitike, you want to bring in Isak, possibly you do, possibly you do not. You brought in Florian Wirtz, arguably the most expensive buy in Liverpool's history. Then you've really reinforced in that. So there's going to be, I believe, a lot of more scrutiny on Liverpool and Arsenal that somehow Manchester City could go under the radar. They could get to do their business a bit quietly, almost unnoticed, like that. And then you're going to have Chelsea on the other side, because I believe Chelsea have gotten so many things right, especially from the midfield going forward, and defensively, and that will make them better even defensively, because when you look at that combination of Moises Caicedo, Romeo Lavia, and Enzo Fernandez, very good combination. However, I think they're going to be using Moises Caicedo, Enzo Fernandez with Cole Palmer ahead of them, then Willian Esteban or Jamie Gittens, Pedro Neto, and João Pedro or Liam Delap, whoever Maresca chooses to start with. And they're going to be quite the attacking force in Chelsea in there. So they're going to be one to think about. Arsenal are a serious club compared to City and Liverpool. Yes, that I do agree with you, and that's exactly what I'm trying to say. That when you look at the kind of profiles that Man City have added to their squad, they are not very alarming. Really, you've not. It's not like you've signed Mbappe. It's not like you spent big on Florian Wirtz. So that's why Manchester City could go about their business really quietly. Then they've had an overhaul of their coaching staff to bring in Pep Linders, to bring in Cole Toure, and things like that. So there's been major changes. They've lost Kevin De Bruyne, who I think is going to be a big task for them to replace. Of course, Kyle Walker, they are yet to find a right back. They've added a good left back in Ryan Ashnori. You have Tijan Riedas, who really good in that game against Parmo. While he missed a golden opportunity, he did score a goal. He did look good. So Bernardo Silva is now the new captain. Unfortunately for them, Lodri suffered an injury setback and is expected to be back in mid-September. They do have Nico Gonzalez. Mateo Kovacic is still there. Phil Foden, if he can click back again, he will be a different monster. We know about the abilities of Brad Erling Haaland as well as Omar Mamouche. Tottenham Hotspurs are in the pursuit of Savinho, a bit of a surprise move for me. And again, Manchester City have never stood in the way of any player if they want to leave. That's Pep Guardiola's principle. If you're okay leaving, you're good to go. So again, I do not know what Tottenham Hotspurs have seen in Savinho that Manchester City have failed to bring out of him, because while he came in to replace Riyad Mahrez, he's been half the player Riyad Mahrez was really. So that's how I look at Manchester City. But anyways, I thank you so much for the fruitful conversation, Naib. I hope you subscribe to the channel while you're here with us. Thank you so much, Shumail. Thank you so much, JF, FTBL. Thank you so much, Super Pablo, Leon Curtis Jones. Thank you so much for being part of today morning's broadcast. I wish you nothing but the very best of the rest of the day. It's been a pleasure doing this with you. Allow me to wrap it here and wish you a wonderful rest of the day and a blessed meal. Bye-bye for now. See you guys next time.